Yeah, Coach.
All right, you all good today? There we go. That gets some of the beer out. A couple of announcements quickly before we go on to the drills panel. I'm going to do a story, and today's the barbecue lunch, and there'll be lots of time with exhibitors. And then there's a couple of sessions in here later on this afternoon. Tonight's the women's gala. Guys, you're on your own. And I'm going to kick this off just to link into what I'm going to do later this afternoon, which is a session which I've called Storytelling for Leaders. And I believe that all of you as leaders need to be good storytellers. I think you need to teach your kids to be good storytellers because it's a skill they'll use for the rest of their lives. So I like to think of this in the sense that we use, as human beings, we use images and all kinds of symbols to connect us to stories. What's amazing about stories is that we remember them because a great story will touch us on all of our levels. And the story can be triggered by a lot of things. You've heard the phrase, a picture's worth 1,000 words. I believe that's true. Look at these images and just think of the story that they trigger. So this of a big vision, this of the horrors of war, this of courage in the face of adversity, this of hope, the Berlin Wall, this of horrible tragedy, and this of having fun. All famous images that trigger things. Now, in the world of sports, you use an abstraction called numbers to remind you of people and incidents. The numbers of famous athletes on your team that are hung sometimes in the rink where you'll see them. But I'll put to you that a number is just a symbol until you put a story to it. So it's really great to look at the number 9 or 7, which are famous numbers in hockey, but they're meaningless unless there's a story attached to them. So here's a story about the number 261. 261, a pretty innocuous number. The story takes place in 1967. The hero of the story is a young woman, a freshman at Syracuse University named Catherine Switzer. Catherine had started running in high school because she wanted to get in shape to join the women's field hockey team. And she started running long distances. When she went to Syracuse, she discovered that there was no women's running team. There was no long-distance team. Because she was so passionate about running, though, they allowed her to run with the men's team and be trained with them. The coach of the men's team was a guy named Arnie Briggs, and Arnie was a good runner. And at the time, despite the fact that men and women are equally capable of running if they're fortunate enough to have good health, there were no organized races for women. He had run Boston, the Boston Marathon, quite a few times, and Boston was kind of the holy grail of running. And young Catherine, this freshman, running with him one day said, I want to run Boston. I want to run the Boston Marathon. And Arnie said, no dame never ran no marathon. And she was quite taken aback by then, but she was pretty persistent, and she challenged him and said, if I can run a marathon with you, is there any reason you wouldn't let me run? And he said, yeah, okay, sure, let's do it. So they went out and they trained one day and ran the 26.2 miles, after which he pretty much passed out. She ran another 5 miles just to, give him one of those, and came back and he said, okay, I guess you've made your point. They looked into the rules and discovered there was nothing illegal about a woman running. It had just never been done. So one snowy morning, they, along with her boyfriend, went up to Boston. She registered under the name K. Switzer, just the initial K, and went in the race. And I'll let her tell you the rest of the story.
The world's most famous foot race even attracts a leggy lady, K. Switzer of Syracuse.
So there we were with my coach, Arnie Briggs, and my boyfriend, an All-American football player, Tom Miller. When other runners would come by, they would say, oh, it's a girl. And they were so excited. And Arnie was saying, yep, I've trained her. And all of a sudden, the flatbed truck is in front of us, and I heard the photographer saying, slow down, slow down, slow down. And they were taking pictures of us. On this truck was the race directors. One of them was a feisty character by the name of Jock Semple. He just stopped the bus, jumped off, and ran after me. Suddenly I turned and he just grabbed me and screamed at me, get the hell out of my race and give me those numbers. And then he started clawing at me, trying to rip my numbers off. And I was so surprised. And he had the fiercest face of any guy I'd ever seen, and out of control, really. I was terrified. And all of a sudden, my boyfriend, Big Tom, gave Jock the most incredible cross-body block and sent Jock flying. And all of this happened in front of the press truck. The journalists got very aggressive. What are you trying to prove? You know, are you a suffragette? Are you a crusader? Whatever that is, you know. And I said, what? I'm just trying to run. They finally left. Then it got very quiet. Snow's coming down. Nobody's saying anything. And I turned to Arnie and I said, Arnie, you know, I've gotten you into a lot of mess here, I guess. But I said, I don't know where you stand in this. But I said, I'm going to finish this race on my hands and my knees if I have to. Because nobody believes that I can do this. And suddenly I realize, you know, if I don't finish this race, then everybody's going to believe women can't do it and that they don't deserve to be here and that they're incapable. I've got to finish this race. I finished in 4 hours, 20 minutes. That race changed my life. It wasn't until about midnight when we were driving back from Boston to Syracuse University and we stopped on the thruway to get an ice cream and some coffee. Did we see the newspapers and the covered front and back of all the different editions with the pictures. I realized that now this was very, very important, and was going to change my life, and it was probably going to change women's sports.
It took 5 years until Boston officially allowed women to enter, astoundingly. And during that time, Catherine teamed up with Avon and started creating races for women only around the world. She was also instrumental in having a women's marathon in the Olympics.
So who would have ever imagined that all of a sudden this bib number, 261, would suddenly become a magic number, meaning fearless in the face of adversity?
She started a group called Fearless 261, dedicated to helping women connect and also feeling more empowered through running. And fantastically, Catherine ran Boston again this year, 50 years later at age 70, and ran it in a pretty impressive 4:44. So what's in a number? Well, there's a story behind every number on your team, behind every number that's been retired on your team. And I think one of your big jobs, as I said when I started this story, is to make that number real, to tell what's the story behind that number. And it's one of the things we're going to look into later today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to give a round of applause to Catherine Switzer. And with that, Casey Jones and the crew are going to do drills.
I just want to encourage you in the future. If you want to present down here, just reach out to the body. It's tough to get people to get up in front here, but we've got a good crew here today. Appreciate them coming forward. We're going to start first here. First drill presenter will be Jason Herter from University of Minnesota Duluth. He's going to do structuring the penalty kill.
Morning, everybody. When I look at this and we all talk about it, basically your goalie's supposed to be your best penalty killer and take less penalties, right? And we all talk about that. But there's also got to be something as what you're willing to give up. They got 5, you got 4. There's a lot of good teams out there, and I know your penalty killers are good as well, but you can't cover everything. And we found that if you try and cover everything at all times, you tend to be hesitant, and you tend to take wrong angles because you're worried about more than just your job. So we always go through what are you willing to give up and make sure the goalie's aware of what you're willing to give up before you start structuring it. So before I run through this, I'll go through what our goals were in Duluth as what we wanted to have as just pure structure. And we all go through drills, 5-on-5, 2-on-1s down low. You try and break down the game into small little parts of a game within a game, and then you eventually get your team structure for every situation. So to me, I don't think it's any different with the penalty kill. So for us, we wanted to define our forecheck, and it's our F1, F2 pressure. How are we going to do it? We're going to send 1, we're going to send 2. And our goals were just to keep things simple. If you're F1, you can't tie to the puck on a dump. As you're checking, F1 needs to see 2 players, F2 needs to be tied to F1, and F2 can't go until he sees 3 players. If he doesn't see 3 players, he immediately has to start looking around him, and you wedge it back. So that was our goal with our F1, F2. Our goal in the neutral zone was to try and cut the ice in 3 quarters, make them play on 3 quarters of the ice, one direction or the other, and try and force pucks going into the zone. The biggest thing for us was defining who takes the speed when they do get to the line and who takes the kickouts and what's the most dangerous areas. So for us, as much as we could, we let our D take the speed, forward, back pressuring, take any kick-out plays. Other D protect the middle of the rink, and back checking forward, the original F1 will try to come back to the middle of the rink somewhere. If they dump, of course, he's going to one of the walls to try and get the puck and get it out. If they don't and they have possession, you're protecting the middle of the rink. The other thing is there's a lot of great players in college hockey. You give them time to make plays, they're going to make plays. So for us, angles were hugely important of how you attack the puck. And good players, will, like I said, will make plays if you give them time, but making them have to make plays through your body makes it more difficult at our level. And the last thing is, especially in college hockey right now, we all watch NHL hockey, and they're starting to get into a lot of drop plays. And defending the drop was one thing. Teams have a lot of different type of drop plays. How do you defend the drop and still stay into your structure as you're entering your zone, trying to stop it at your own blue line? So we played Harvard. It was one of our challenges. They had obviously some great players, and the one thing we hadn't seen before is their drop play. So we spent a lot of time in practice breaking it down on how do we stay in our structure and try and defend their drop play within our structure through the neutral zone without trying to change everything. So I'm just going to run through some clips here. Where's your thing here? So they like to swing a guy behind the net. They drop, but they have three options behind the play. So we started dropping a guy in behind. There's a little delay between these clips here. They come the other way, and if you look at the back, our structure is whether the stretch player comes to the puck or away from the puck, we try and keep our four-man structure in the neutral zone. Now they get the spread, immediately put pressure on the spread. The drop, we hold the middle of the rink. If you can't get them, now we're in good structure. We try and pressure the first pass. Another drop, now he goes, makes a mistake. Pressure the puck. And right there is an example of what happens when you make a mistake. You give up something when someone doesn't have the right angle. Another look from the other way, and we try and keep pressure on the puck. Now, the one thing with drop passes, and there's a few more running here, is if you don't re-attack the puck on a drop pass, or at least someone re-gap, you end up with your D at the top of the circles and your forwards trying to protect the blue line. You might as well just go into a very passive position to start, in our opinion, and live to fight another day. Again, we try and keep our structure. It ends up in a 2-2 with pressure a lot. I'm going to stop this here if I can. Then we try and do stuff in zone, and most power plays now, they've evolved. They start with a right-handed overload that moves into an umbrella that goes into a 2-3, goes into a spread, into a 1-3-1, all in the same power play. How do you defend that? Well, first of all, it's a lot of talk by our defensemen. We encourage our goalies and our defensemen to be the forward's eyes. A lot of times they're sealing when they shouldn't be sealing because now the team behind them, as they're attacking a defenseman, they didn't see that they went into a spread. It's kind of hard to seal a spread when they're going corner to corner to corner. You can't get after them. You tend to get out of position. So our D are our forward's eyes. So here's an example where in practice for this situation, we tried to defend an overload that went into a spread, that went into a 1-3-1 back into a spread, and just trying to make sure that our guys had sticks in lanes and did their best. Whoa. Just kind of spread out. Now into a 1-3-1. Get beat out there. So that's starting in the end zone structure. We move from the structure up the rink back into the end zone structure, and we have our key points on end zone structure for us. whether it's the push down and seal, how aggressive you're going to be. Are you going to hold the man in the middle, let the top guy, call it a windshield wiper, or move all the way across the rink and just hold the middle of the rink and try and defend the scoring areas? Again, what are you going to give up? If they go from low to high and the D on the wall is inside the dots, we tend to keep our F1 going. If they get between the dots, you have to start doing exchanges, and we have some key points for that. So for us, D, stick on dots, don't get too far out of plays. How do you defend the pop play? And when they have their low guy close to the net, you have to defend it different than when they put their low guy far in a corner to try and get you to chase. A lot of power plays we faced this year had no one in front of the net until their key points of when the shot was coming, they put a guy in front of the net. So standing in front of the net with no one to cover on a penalty kill, to me, didn't make a whole lot of sense. To me, it was your angle of attack to anyone that got the puck down low, making them go through you, and having help defend the pop. So what we'd be giving up on that situation was weak side, back door, and again, we try and cut the ice in half. D takes anything back door in certain situations, and we have help with the pop, and you'll see that shortly here. But those were our keys and angles of attacks in zone. Just let this run. And it's funny, you'll see when we all have that mock power play guy that comes in and destroys your penalty kill, but he's not good enough to be on your power play. Right? But again, here we're trying to hold the man in the middle. We do the top seal all the way down. Now they went into a spread. There's a mistake there, no communication. Now they're in a spread, and the guy had no one to cover in the middle of the rink. There's just a small example. I'm going to try and run through these and not stop it. There's one drill we do that's coming up here next. Case, how do you fast forward this? No clue. I'll try and do this. Yeah, I'm scared to try it. There's Adam Johnson wrecking our penalty kill. I'm going to move forward to our drill at the end of practice. Here we go. This is the stuff we do. This is how we break it down. All we're doing here in practice, we do this quite a bit, is we are just how do you seal, your angles of your seal, your re-attacks, and how you protect down low. So here we're just working on the seal. He moves it down low. There's the angle of the D. This next one, we're covering the man in the middle. They're getting to the top. Now here's it switched to the middle of the rink. You got Adam Johnson coming down. You got him deep. Now he takes the middle. Carson Kuhlman comes up. Denver was really, really good at this. And it's just a switch to man in the middle, him not getting the puck because it goes low to high. And we just break it down like this in practice. It's just running routes. Now we're going to do man in the middle coverage, who's covering back door. And this is where I'll stop it real quick. The last time is, I'll get it going here. This is a spot where teams like to put their guy in the corner. You see by the AMSOIL sign there, and they have no one in front of the net. They're trying to bait you into taking a bad angle. So in this case, Neil Pionk would take an angle that would help. The puck would have to go through him to get to the pop guy. We got our, I'll call him F2, taking away the pop as well. Our D cover and back door. And I think that's Ally follow, trying to be top-down pressure and keep the puck in one area. And if you put pressure on them right away, their only play, what are we willing to give up? We're willing to give up strong side D, who would have to, in this case, be outside the dots, against the wall, and that's something we're willing to give up. But we just do simple drills like this, where it's just routes. I don't even think we had a goalie in there. Now there's a left-handed overload running through what teams do at exchanges. Who's covering the pop? T intersection. And down. There's more in there, but I just wanted to open up for questions. If anyone had any questions, obviously, we had the frustrating thing about the penalty kill for us this year is we didn't lose a lot of guys from the year before. We kept all our penalty killers. And we went from I think 85.5 2 years ago down to, for a while, we're running at 78% with the same guys, the same structure, the same this. You run into a couple weekends of early in the year of guys just, not quite getting it. And my philosophy and our philosophy back in Duluth is every year you come back, you got to assume they know nothing and start over again. You expect, but then you expect to the point where you're giving up 3 power play goals a game, and you got to get back to just the basic structure. When we went back to doing this late October and just settling it down and running routes, our penalty kill got better and better and better all the way through the season.
Any questions for Jason? Question for us, depending who we're playing. Since I've been at Duluth for 6 years, I kept clips and I kept pre-scouts and all the notes I've ever had on teams, and I get to watch. And if they haven't changed anything, I know exactly what points to hit. And a lot of teams have stayed the same with a couple tweaks. You don't have to spend as much time, later in the year, obviously. But we really started this. We did it a lot last year. 2 years ago, and again, I made a mistake about not starting this early enough this year because just assuming kids know. But Lars and I would go out before practice and work with the penalty killer power play. Then we'd have a regular structured practice. It was at the end of practice where we get the guys to come out because this isn't taxing. It's not hard. You know what I mean? So for us, we probably spend half an hour a week going through this. One day it might just be working on the seal for 5 minutes after practice. The next day it's working on breakouts. The next day it's working on a 5-man versus 4-man. Any other questions? Really appreciate it, Jason. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Staying at the same school here. We've got Laura Bellamy in, assistant coach with the Minnesota Duluth women's program. She's going to look at some scoring concepts from the bad angle shots from a goaltender's perspective. So she's going to give a little presentation on that. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Coach. Good. So, 1 second here. Like Coach said, I'm going to talk about the sharp angle shot. And as you can see from the title, the basis of it here is Kane's Stanley Cup winning goal from 2010. So at this point, that's 7 years ago. I think it's still interesting from a goalie perspective. If you're more of an offensive mind, you can certainly look at this presentation from that perspective. I'll talk a lot about some weaknesses that goalies have on sharp angle shots. So just to show that goal. Puck goes up the wall here. Kane gets it high and takes it from a sharp angle. So here's where he shoots it from. If you remember this goal, it was really awkward for Michael Layton. Goes in. Oops, let me just show that again. Goes in, and most of the building doesn't even know that puck's in the net. It actually goes 5-hole on Layton and then ends up in the far side of the net, and Patrick Kane is pretty much the only one in the building who knows that goes in. So just to define the sharp angle, as I talk about it, it'll be kind of from the back post. You guys can see the mouse. Back post through the bottom of the circle to the half wall on both sides. So the area I'm talking about is everything underneath here. And just why this matters, I think as teams defend better and try to keep offenses to the outside of the to the outside of the ice, it's harder to create chances from the middle. So it's important to be able to create scoring chances from the outside, depending if your team's just struggling to get to the middle of the ice or time on the clock, you might have to create a scoring chance from out there. And for goalies at sharper angles, there's a lot of different save selection that you can use, so it actually makes it more difficult because you have to be pretty decisive, which Layton wasn't on that goal. And goalies really have to deal with all the pros and cons, so it's just a tough area to try to make a save from. Again, most of this is going to be from a goalie perspective because I was a goalie, but you'll be able to kind of see from an offensive standpoint how to score goals from out there. So this is our goalie, Matty Rooney. I'll just define standard as kind of the position she's in right now, standing up and kind of working back to her post. So if she were to be flush with her post standing up, that's kind of our standard. And as butterflying has become more popular, it's pretty much what goalies use to make almost all their saves. If she were to butterfly from where she is right now on her post, she'd give up this short side. So that's kind of why goalies have had to come up with different ways to make short angle saves. And these are the three I'll talk about, kind of in order of, the reverse VH at the end there is probably the most popular now. So these are the three I'll talk about. You'll see in the first picture, this is what the overlap looks like. This is a vertical horizontal, also known as a VH, also known as a post load. And then the third one here, Ben Bishop, is in a reverse vertical horizontal. I'll call that an RVH or a post lean. So these are the three I'll take into some depth and kind of what the pros and cons are for goalies and how shooters can score on these. This is just my personal opinion. Hopefully a lot of goalie people agree, but it's up for debate. I think anytime the puck's below the goal line, a goalie should pretty much be on their feet. And the RVH, as you'll see when we go into depth, can be really useful on behind the net plays, wraparounds, quick pass out play to the slot. And then in this sharp angle area, kind of where these triangles are, any of the three can be great options. Just to go back to the goal, it shows it in slow motion here. From an offensive standpoint, Kane on this goal, he not only takes it from a sharp angle and he's on his strong side, so he's able to kind of get this puck to net because he has good stick positioning, but he's also off puck when he shoots, so he looks like he could be going behind the net, maybe throwing it to the slot, but he actually ends up putting it on net, which is, from a goal scorer's standpoint, does a great job. From Michael Layton's standpoint, he's really indecisive here. He starts to kind of go into a VH, ends up in an RVH, and again is just really indecisive, and I think that's a key for goalies to be able to know what save they want to make in a given situation. Here he just doesn't know what he's going to do, and he ends up giving a goal because of it. So just going to go into these three in a little bit more depth. This is the overlap. So from that standard position on post standing up, what the overlap is you take a little bit of depth out of the net so that you can butterfly. And then the overlap is to take some lateral ice so that you're kind of overlapping the post. You see it here in this picture. You see it again here with Crawford. He's down in his butterfly again because he's taken some depth out and then overlapped his post. He probably made a save from a sharp angle here and then gave up the rebound out to the middle because that's where his eyes are. But you can see that he's overlapping his post. This is probably the best picture of why the overlap is useful. So in the picture on the left, this goalie is, again, taken depth and just butterflied from there. And as a result, he gives up what I'll call the vertical seam here on the short side, ton of net to shoot at. If he takes a lateral move toward the goal line in the second picture, you see that he's not giving up the same net. So just some pros and cons to this. And the overlap isn't as popular as the other two, but what it allows is for the goalie to be fully square to the sharp angle shot and have complete coverage of that vertical seam like you see in this picture again. And then versatility. You can butterfly from this position. You can stay up, and I have a couple clips of that. On the downside, you're not on your post, so it's hard to have good leverage to make a good explosive push out to the middle. And it really shouldn't be used with a threat in the slot because of that, and because you're not really you're really square to that sharp angle, and just not intended for plays from behind the goal line because you give up your post. So here's a clip of I think these are some Canadian goalies doing a drill. But what you'll see here is they come out, they take depth, and they also take lateral movement at the end, kind of toward the goal line to overlap the post. And you can see here they butterfly, but they could also stay standing, and they take away that vertical seam as a result. Kind of shifts at the end so that he's not giving up the top corner. So that drill just kind of shows it. Here's a clip of our goalie in a game. Pause it here. This shot comes from just outside the sharp angle area, but our goalie here is, you see she's not right on her post. She's taken some depth so that she can butterfly. But at the end here, she also shifts laterally so that she takes away that vertical seam we talk about. Last clip here of the overlap. This is probably the best one. Number 7 there, Laura Stalder, plays for us at UMD and is on the Swiss national team. Scores here from a sharp angle. Again, you'll see her sticks to the outside, so she's able to just throw this puck to the net. This next angle is probably the best. This goalie, as the shot's being taken, is right on her post. So had she taken a little bit of depth out, then she can butterfly, stand up. You know, she has room to do either. And if she's to overlap the post, she takes up that vertical seam we talk about, so she doesn't give up a short side goal. Here, she's just caught in an awkward spot on her post and ends up not being square to the shot as a result. Goes in 5-hole. So that's the overlap. The VH and the RVH are, a lot more popular. This is the VH, so when goalies use that term, what they mean is that this lead pad or the pad on the post is in a vertical position. The weak side pad's in a horizontal position, so called the VH. Many ways to do it. Here, Tuukka Rask is kind of inside his net, whereas Carey Price is kind of on the outside of his post, but that's how it looks. Positives being you cover that vertical seam, again, especially on the glove side. If you're to get your glove up, you can cover this whole vertical seam along the post. You're able to push to the slot and do it explosively. Great clip coming up of Antti Niemi doing that. And the downside is just, you have to be on your inside edge to be able to do that. So you see here with Tuukka Rask, he's on his inside edge. He's probably going to get a great push from there, but he's also... It's really hard to stay flush to your post when you're on your inside edge. You have to have really good ankle flexibility, and that's when, you see goalies starting to push away from their post and give up a short side goal because they're trying to stay on their inside edge and also stay flush with that post. It's not easy to do. And you also have the option to give up a rebound off that horizontal pad. And again, you can typically explode out there pretty well for a rebound, but, that's a downside to it. And for a shooter, it's a great option to try to put something off the inside pad. And it's just often overused or used incorrectly on the rush. Got a clip of that coming up too. So again, just showing some positives and negatives to these moves. Here the Rangers have the puck in that sharp angle area down here. So Niemi, as you see, gets in a VH position and makes a save here off that pass to the slot. So again, positive here being explosiveness, and Antti Niemi is one of the most explosive goalies in the NHL, but he actually is a little off balance and his eyes are slow to this puck, but because he's in the VH and he's already locked and loaded on his inside edge, he's super explosive. Not the best shot either, but is able to make that save. Here, this play from the outside, Nick Bukestad scores on Dubnyk. There's another. Let's see here. And this is on the rush. Again, I think the VH gets overused a little bit on the rush when Dubnyk could have just come over and probably overlapped his post or even stayed even with it and taken away that vertical seam, not giving up that goal up high. A very similar play here. And again, on the glove side, if you get your glove up there, you're typically able to take it away, but from here, the outside shot, just not flush with his post. And again, my feeling is on the rush. If you go into the VH, you put yourself in a position to give up a goal like that versus just staying square to the play. Here's the last and most popular. This is probably what you see goalies in the most, the RVH. So again, lead pad or post pad, horizontal. And then your weak side pad is in more of a vertical position, so that's where the term comes from. Jonathan Quick, one of the best in the NHL, and Ben Bishop, I would argue it's even better part of his arsenal because he's so big. He's in the RVH here as well. Horizontal pad, vertical pad in the middle, he can push off there. So positives here, you flush the post down low, and for that reason, it's really the best save to make from behind the net plays. As you can see, if you're trying to wrap the puck here, you got nowhere to put it. He's taking away everything down low. And you can easily go paddle down on either side, whereas in the VH, that's a little tougher to do on the blocker side. Downside, habitual use can lead to getting beat on the far side and just not being square. You'll see a clip coming up of that. And transitioning out of it can be difficult. I think the most important thing about the RVH is that you need size to do it. So a lot of goalie coaches are teaching this, but for smaller goalies, I think they should probably use it less often. You'll see why here in the last clip. But right here, this is, again, we're in dark, our goalie, Maddie Rooney, against the Gophers here. Just want to show this clip again. These are just a few clips of her in the RVH throughout the game when the puck's tight around the net. You'll see here she goes into it because she kind of feels that gopher player accelerating behind the net, so she wants to take away, a potential wraparound play. But it is tough to transition out of because she's not on her edge like you would be in a VH. So here she just does her best to try to push out, isn't really able to get her feet set, and luckily the kid misses the net, but it's a really hard play to come out of. And then here, just 2 more clips of her in the RVH. Again, just gets over to her post when she feels like there might be a wraparound threat. This last one, same thing. She kind of just stays in that RVH set as that play comes out from low. Downside to it here, again, I'd say habitual use of it. Goalies have gotten really comfortable in this position, particularly big goalies. And so here, this shot actually comes from above the top of the circle. And for the RVH, you can use it from sharp angles, but it's really better on in-tight plays when you're trying to take away low. Here, this guy's high enough and it sticks to the inside, so he's able to just push that puck to the far side of the net. And this Tampa goalie's shoulders aren't square to the play, so beats him far side. I guess in that case, if you're going to use the RVH, the key is to just have your shoulders square versus be so flat with the net that you're going to give that far side up. Same thing here. This guy has a ton of time and space, but Ottawa goalie is just too flat. Probably could have used a VH here or overlapped. Or if you're going to use the RVH, it's important to make sure you're still challenging and not becoming flat again with the net, giving up the far side play. Last goal here. This is us at home in white. Goes off the backboard. Our kid scores there. Show it in slow motion here. So, I think the RVH is a great move. This puck's coming off the back wall, and Sid Peters from Minnesota decides, okay, I'm going to push off and try to get into the RVH, take away the opposite post. Great decision. However, she comes across really low, and our this is one of our leading goal scorers, is able to put it up high. I just want to make the point on the RVH, for smaller goalies, it's really important to come across big. So I had Sid Peters there, the gopher goalie, try to come over and keep her shoulders up. She's probably better off here because instead of having that whole side to shoot at, our shooter would have had to really put that thing upstairs. But just a point here, if you have smaller goalies, that it's a great move, but it's important to keep their shoulders up, and it's just a better move for bigger goalies. So yeah, some takeaways here. I'll just leave them up and maybe take questions, if that's good.
Any questions for Laura? Thought it was interesting that her goalie stopped all the Minnesota shots, but the Minnesota goalie did not stop the Minnesota Duluth shot. That was good. Great video work. I like that. We do that with St.
Brad's
Lawrence.
not here.
How does the different saves you're talking about affect the goaltender poke checking that sharp angle shot?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think the RVH is really the last one here. Again, the most popular one is where poke checking comes into play the most, because that's the one you want to use in tight. Really, if you're in a VH, hopefully it's because the puck's a little farther out, or if you are going to use a poke check, at least you're explosive to get out of it. But it really, it's easiest to use when you're in the RVH and you're taking away low anyway. You know that play is going to stay in tight, so you can reel it back in. But I think most useful in the RVH.
That's great, Laura. Fantastic video. Great. Thanks. Next presenter here is Brendan Buckley, assistant coach of the Yukon men's program. He's got some transition drills, scoring off the rush, and then a good compete drill in his own there. So, Brendan Buckley, Yukon men.
I got 3 drills here, coaching points from both offensive and defensive perspective. 2 of the drills are rush drills. One drill is going to be in zone. And most of the drills, in most cases, the advantage is going to be with the offense. Our video here is cut right from practice, so it's definitely not going to be perfect. But kids can learn from making mistakes. And after each drill, after I show the video, if you have any questions, I can stop and we can just do a question right after the drill so things don't get confusing. The first drill, center ice progression. Defensively, we're looking to coach rush recognition. What am I facing? Communication, talking with your partner, and stick on puck is something that we always are coaching pretty much with every drill we're doing. Offensively, again, rush recognition. Am I at the advantage or disadvantage? Getting pucks to the net is obviously key. And when you do have an advantage, getting a player to drive the net to make the defenseman, make a play. For the drill setup, all players, coaches, and pucks in the center ice circle. 2 coaches will run the drill separately from each other, creating random rushes. The offensive coach in the diagram in blue will release 1, 2, or 3 forwards. The defensive coach, yellow, will release 1 or 2 defensemen. Once the drill plays out, the coach blows the whistle, start the drill the other way. Here the diagram on the left. The blue team will be the offensive team. The coach will yell 1, 2, or 3. 3 guys in this drill would take off. They can go either way on the circle. Some guys will go deep. Sometimes guys will cut it close. And they get a pass from the blue coach. At that point, the yellow coach will then tell either 1 or 2 defensemen to jump out and play the rush. And at UConn, we thought this drill was great in terms of communication. We started seeing that guys were actually yelling from yellow in this case, hey, 1 guy's coming, or 2 or 3. It was the most talk we probably had in any drill, with guys helping each other out, trying to figure out what's coming at them, because the center zone is pretty there's a ton of guys in there, and it's hard for the defenseman to see what's coming. We try to make it a game-like situation. So here, 3 blue forwards will take off, get a pass, come down 3-on-2, get the puck to the net. Here, white's going to be on offense. 1 guy comes out. D does a great job of recognizing it's a 1-on-2, step up, don't give him any room, and has turnover at the blue line. Here you see a little bit of opposite. The D do a poor job of recognizing what's going on and get late help. Guy gets a chance on a 1-on-2, which should never happen. Next drill. Does anyone have any questions with that one? There's a lot of guys in the center ice, so no. We try to make it so that the defensemen don't know what's coming, right? Since sometimes the guy will come late. Sometimes 3 guys will swing to one side, and so the rush is coming at them, but 3 guys will overload. Anything else? No. All right, the next drill, called the quick strike D-zone drill. Defensively, getting back to the house. Time and space taken away in the D-zone, and playoff rebounds. Obviously, there's a lot of goals that happen off of rebounds. I think it's a real important thing for all players to kind of practice. The more you practice it, the better you get. There's a skill, I believe, to be able to cover a guy, know when to pick up a stick, know when to play the puck, when to get the puck in the corner, and when to make a pass and a breakout. So the more you can do that, I think the better the guys get at it. And offensively, moving pucks quickly, getting pucks and bodies to the net, move your feet, and score. This drill is going to start off as a 3-on-0, so there should be some goals and some real quality scoring chances. So the setup of the drill, a half-ice drill with 5 offensive players in blue starting in the O zone, 5 defensive players yellow starting in the neutral zone. Drill starts with a pass from the coach to the offensive players. Each forward must touch the puck before trying to score. Defensive players will rush back into the house, sort out their assignments. Drill will continue 5-on-5 in zone until there's a goal or whistle. If they score right away, we'll throw another puck in and play 5-on-5. As you can see in the diagram, blue's already kind of set up. Coach will fire a puck into the corner or to one of the guys. Everyone's got to make a quick pass for a good scoring chance. And when the coaches set this up with the yellow, we often try to have either a wing be the first guy in the zone, because it's not always going to be the center down low covering. Sometimes you have a D that goes into the zone last, like he's pinched and he's coming back into the zone, and guys have to communicate and kind of figure it out. So here the coach fires it into blue. Behind the net, they make a quick play to the net for scoring chance, and now White's trying to sort things out and figure it out. Everyone has different D-zone systems, so either man-on-man or switching or whatever it is, but we play this out 5-on-5 and try to create a game-like situation. Does anybody have any questions with that one? No, we're good? All right. Last drill, Yukon neutral zone rush. Defensively, working on gaps. Obviously, I think that's a real important part of the game, and the better you are at it, the less time you spend in the defensive zone. Again, the rush ID, communicating with your partner, finding out where you're at the advantage and where you're at a disadvantage, when you have to give up the line, when you can hold the line. And then for the forwards in neutral zone, how important the neutral zone is in terms of playing hockey, and it really helps the D. If the F1 does a good job in this drill, you try not to even give up the blue line, then you don't have to play in the D zone. I know a lot of guys don't like playing a minute and a half in the D zone. And offensively, neutral zone play, just being crisp with passes. The offense is on the advantage in both these parts of this drill, whether it's a 5-on-3 or 5-on-4. And it's real important for the defenseman to make good, hard, crisp passes on the tape. When guys start putting pucks in people's feet, it really kind of takes away from the advantage of the odd man rush. O-zone spacing, again, it's going to be 5-on-3 at the beginning of this drill. We want D to get shots down for tips and high tips, and then again scoring goals. We really had an emphasis at the middle to end of the year, just guys scoring goals, and so we tried to set up drills in practice where they're at the advantage and they can get pucks to the net and get some tips and get some goals. Again, the drill will start as a 5-on-3 in the neutral zone off of a face-off win. The D will regroup 3 forwards. F1 from the defending team will pressure an angle, play it out 5-on-3 in the O zone until the goal or coach's whistle. New puck will be placed in the neutral zone for a 5-on-4 play. 2 new wings that weren't involved in the initial drill will come out from the neutral zone and pressure the D. The center that was involved is then out of the drill, and he's done, and you play it out 5-on-4. So again, the diagram on the left shows the beginning of the drill off of a face-off. You can tell the defenseman if we're working on a hinge that week, depending on who we're playing, we'll have the defenseman hinge, or if we're going to do quick ups, we'll work quick ups or hitting centers. We'll tell the guys what to do in the neutral zone, and then hopefully get a good rush. Again, if there's a bad pass, I tell the defenseman, hey, make him pay for it, step up, don't let him get the puck in. If you don't just give up the lines in practice. The diagram on the right is after the whistle, and the diagram is drawn up a little bit wrong. F1 would be out of the play. F2 and 3 would be pressuring the neutral zone, and the D's job is to just kind of get the puck up as quick as they can. And on the defensive side, the yellow D, really, once the whistle's blown, don't just kind of look around and lazily get up to the blue line. I want guys sprinting all the way up to the middle of the ice if they can to create good gaps and make the job a lot easier. So here, blue throws it back. This week we were working on some hinges. The D do a good job of hitting the wing in stride. Speed creates separation. They get the line. Now we're just going to play this 5-on-3 down low. We don't want the white to go up to the point. Point should be open for this to get high tips like the play that we just made right there. We work 3-on-3 down low. Puck gets back up. Good shot to the net. Tip and a rebound. Now the whistle will blow. New puck gets out to the neutral zone. D's racing back to get it, and now he can just break it out any way he wants. Again, this will be 5-on-4. I think the D could have probably done a better job right there with a gap and not giving him the line, make it a little tough. He had inside help. And again, we'll play this 5-on-4 and hopefully create some chances. Does anybody have any questions on that drill? Yes, yeah. We don't. It's a 5-on-3 with 2 D that are just kind of staying low. Yeah. Yeah. We do it for everything really. We working on neutral zone depending on what we're going to use that week, and then in the O zone, just making sure that the defenseman, obviously there's no pressure, so we want pucks down low, we want rebounds, we want guys battling in front. I believe this week we were playing a team that we thought was going to really pressure our D in the neutral zone. So we told them to go right at the D, and we were telling the D to get the puck up as quick as you can. with the beginning part of the drill, we were telling them the hinge. Anyone else? Good.
Thanks, Brendan. Next speaker will be Mark Morris, head coach of St. Lawrence University, a good mentor of mine. I work for Mark. Got him. I talked to him a little bit about some of the things that are lost down here. He's going to talk about a little bit about his experience, where he's been as a head coach and assistant, maybe expectations of his staff, and kind of a development perspective as to maybe what's necessary to be a good coach. So here's Mark.
Thanks, Casey. You know, I think the last time I was up speaking to the body was 1996, I think, and Bruce Crowder was coach of the year. And anyway, I got talking about my old high school coach and started crying. So anyway, that was the last time that I got to speak to the body. But I've been on Mr. Toad's wild ride here for 14 years. It's been interesting. I've learned a ton. I've been real fortunate to be around a lot of great coaches over the years. And I think that for the young assistant coaches, I was one of you guys at one point in time where, you know, I'd sit around and stand with Ron Mason trying to pick up all the drills and all the information and knowledge that you could acquire. And I always felt like that was such a great gift, you know, to give back to the people that are passionate about the game. And so this is my opportunity to tell you about some of the things that I've learned along the path, and also share with you some of the things that, you know, I look up here and I'm just so impressed with people and, you know, how they've broken the game down and dissected it and everything. But then on the flip side, I see how, you know, complicated we've made things. And I think that, you know, when I look, Kim Dillabaugh, one of our goalie coaches in the LA organization, I was trying to explain to him one time about the fact that, you know, this guy should have done this guy should have done that. He was overthinking, and he came out with a quote, "Don't complicate simple." And I think that, you know, as I look at the successes that people have, that's the beauty and the intelligence in the game, is how we simplify the game, but take those complex things so that things become just that much more instinctive to our players. It's more of a mindset than it is always X's and O's, and I think sometimes we curtail the development of our players. I remember Mike O'Connell always asked for, Freddie Meyer worked for me, and he always asked for, you know, to have 10 or 15 minutes during the week. He would drive up from Boston, and we'd be practicing, and he'd say, just give me, you know, 15 minutes this week to scrimmage. And we're thinking, geez, you know, our guys don't even know, you know, how to angle. They got to get their sticks on the ice, and we're trying to get our guys in the proper position. And, you know, now when I hear the speakers speak about creativity, you also have to exercise the playful side of the mind, because I think that's such a big part of the game, and that's what makes it fun. The drudgery that we create as coaches, trying to impart all the knowledge we have, but at the same time, it's that real delicate balance of getting guys in the right spot and then also doing it with passion, because the passion is what separates, you know, the real good teams from the great teams. And I know there's a whole lot of knowledge in here. I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know, but, you know, I had the good fortune of working for Joe Marsh, and Joe was one of those guys that, you know, he could keep it light, and that made it fun for the players. He may not have been the best X's and O's guys, but, man, those guys had run through a wall for him. And I think sometimes we get too full of ourselves in this business. We all have egos and such, and I think that one of the quotes that I remember he said that has always stuck with me, it's better to be humble than to get humbled. Well, in this business, it's a tough business, and especially when people are making more money and, you know, expectations are higher. And I think that, you know, as you look at the pro game, some of you guys probably aspire to get there. I really enjoyed my time in the development stages in Manchester. You know, I had the good fortune, as I said, working with Freddie Meyer and Scott Pellerin. And, you know, I look at the guys that I had the good fortune of being in development camp with. You know, during the lockout, we had John Stevens, and we had Davis Payne. We had Billy Ranford. Dean Lombardi would come down and walk in our shoes. He'd be the guy that would be leaving his dirty underwear on the countertop in the men's room and stealing your brand new shoes, your running shoes. But he actually got a chance to, walk in our shoes at the American League level. I always appreciated the fact that he would come down and actually see what we were doing and try to, just really find out what it's all about. And that's why I think it's such a great game at the college level is you have the time. In pro hockey, you don't have the time to practice. You have so many opportunities to teach. And, kids today are a lot more complex than, the hockey we knew when we were kids. And, when you do take that time and you do have the opportunity to sell the game and to teach them the why, as I heard the other day, the new millennium kid is a different cat, and we got to find ways to motivate them, and it's a big challenge. And money's driving the game right now, and sometimes that innocence, when it's lost, it can get really confusing. And as I look at some things that really have impacted me, one of our players at Clarkson, Eddie Sabo, lost his wife, and I went to her memorial service, and the pastor said something. There was a group about this size there with little kids, and she was like Mrs. Mom to everybody. And she was sick. She even kind of organized her own funeral. She knew she was going, but she had been that organized. She was running kids to soccer and hockey and everything. And she'd be baking cookies for people and taking their dogs in the neighborhood for a walk and such. But the pastor said something that stuck with me, and it applies to all of us in our position as coaches, and that was that we can impact, inspire, and influence people, and that's essentially what we do. And it's so cool. I remember I was in San Diego, and I was sitting in a small little locker room, and it was actually the equipment room in the practice facility for San Diego. And in comes Dallas Aiken. He says, "Is there anything you need?" Sorry about the inconvenience. We're dressing next to these boxes of stinky old gear and stuff. And then I walk out, and I bump into Todd Marchand, Tim Jackman, and Joe Pascula, three guys from three different eras. And it was just such a neat feeling to see all those guys and to understand that, they took the time to come back and, just acknowledge the fact that you played a part in their life. And I just thought that was pretty cool. As I was trying to prepare for this, I just started going down the list of guys that I've learned so much from over time. And you take a little bit from every assistant coach that you do have. And as an assistant coach, a lot of times, you may feel underappreciated, but rest assured that the guys that are worth their weight are recognizing your contributions. So I was going down, and I said, when I was at Clarkson, I had Steve Dedigian, I had George Roll, I had Greg Dreschel, I had Casey Jones, Ronnie Ralston, and you guys know these names: Jimmy Rock, Ronnie Fogarty, Brad Dexter, Jason Lammers, Fred Parker. And then from there, after I left Clarkson, I was looking for work, and Mark Crawford came calling. So I got a chance to work with him and Brian Burke and Mike Johnston, and that's where I met Ian Clark for the first time. And then after that, I went to Saginaw, and I was working with Mo Mantha. My wife told me, "You got to go get a job. You're driving me crazy." So I was still trying to get back into college coaching at the time. And so anyway, I went and I worked for Mo for $10,000, and they gave me a car. And then I was looking for work the next year, and Tom Fleming had retired from Northwood. So I applied there, and I got to Northwood, and I was driving a bus and babysitting kids, and it was the most fun. And I just realized that, this is why you're in the business, and it gave me great pleasure to impart my knowledge and try and help these kids end up getting scholarships. And, it's great to see some of those guys in the room right now. So those guys have gotten into the coaching business, and it's so humbling for me to see that. It's awesome. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, where to go from there? Ron Hextall's kid, he had gotten himself in some hot water at Milton Academy. And anyway, I told the headmaster, I said, we got to get him in here. Do you realize what it would do for our program if we got Ron Hextall's kid? So we take in Brett Hextall, and Brett Hextall ends up being my captain, has a great year. And at the end of the season, Ron was leaving Philadelphia, and he had an opportunity with LA, and he said, do you want to come out to development camp? And I'm thinking, geez, I could drive a bus, babysit, or go out there. Yeah, I think I'll do that. Well, Jimmy Hughes had just been let go, so I ended up going to the development camp, and at the end of development camp, they asked me to apply for the American League job. I ended up in Manchester. I was there for 8 seasons. Buck was my first captain, and I was telling Buck, and Joey Mormina's in the room too, and it was just the coolest thing. Go in there, had no idea. Nobody told me what to do. I think we won 51 wins that year. We had Jason LaBarbera as a goaltender, so that's probably a big reason why that happened. But that led to the development stages of what the Kings were working on. They won a couple cups during that time, and from there I went on to work in Florida. I thought that was the next move, and realized that being an assistant coach at this stage of my life probably wasn't going to keep me happy. So after that, I went to Carolina, and we were on our way back from Winnipeg, and my phone started blowing up, and everybody said that Greg Carvel was going to UMass. So I had a chance to go full circle all the way back to St. Lawrence, and I just thought that I'd share that story for a lot of you guys that are out there wondering where this crazy game's going to take you. Eventually it brings you right back to square one. So not such a bad thing. It's a real honorable profession, and it's a great sport. When you're doing a hell of a job recruiting, you make your coaches look pretty darn good, and I just think it's a great opportunity for all of us to take a step back and just realize the impact you can have on people. And I'm open to questions, because I feel, as I said, I feel really fortunate to have gone through the whole development process with the Kings, and then watch it, how I saw it unfold in Florida, and then also in Carolina. I'll tell you a quick story. I was with my first year after I was out of Clarkson, and I was the interim strength coach for the Vancouver Canucks. And I said to Mark Crawford, I said, Crow, what do I know about strength and conditioning? He said, it's all taken care of. He said, I just want a fresh set of eyes. So anyway, we're in the Bell Center. Jean Beliveau was my boyhood hero. And we're coming down in between periods to tell Mike Johnston and Mark Crawford and Jack McElharty, what was going on out there. And the door opens up, and there's Jean Beliveau. And I got my media pass, and I'm thinking, I can't have him sign this thing. It's too corny. But the opportunities that I've had, and the crazy ride that I've been on has certainly been well worth it. And, I still think that the people in this room can understand and appreciate, how fulfilling it can be to be coaching college hockey. So I'd like to answer any questions anybody has. And yes, Mark.
Mark, when you were in my barn with Manchester, it was one of the craziest things I ever saw. Your whole team was in white, and you practiced power play, penalty killing, everything. Everyone was white. Do you still employ that?
Well, I heard Buck allude to it. Some of the hardest things you have to teach, doesn't matter if you're a pro or you're a college player, kids today don't talk, And I think anything you can do to encourage conversation is so important to the development of these kids. I mean, they grew up with cell phones and computers and texting and all that, and they just don't talk. And it is so hard. So we try and put them in scenarios where they have to communicate as much as possible. And we go on the road. I'm sure that the trainer was only bringing one set, so that's probably why we were all in white. But it did help them to learn to converse out there. Anybody else? Yes?
You've been in a long time, obviously, this has come full circle for you in college hockey. How have you had to adapt as a coach from, let's say, 20 years ago to the player then to the player now?
I've made every mistake imaginable in this game. And, I remember a practice. I don't know if you probably weren't with us. our goalies weren't playing very well at one point in time, and I remember just telling them, go sit on the bench. And I took a bunch of tires and I just filled up the net. I made them sit there and watch. And I'm reminded constantly of some of the stupid things that I did at that point in time, you know, because it was more about just the W. It wasn't teaching. And, you know, that's the thing that I really was impressed about with Dean's philosophy. And I know that things have kind of cooled off, but he tried to imply the Moneyball type of mentality where you had, you know, the pitching coach, the batting coach, the psychologist, and all that sort of stuff. And development is where it's at. If you really want to teach somebody, I think the pro game has that right, where they do take the time in the summer to break the game down so you can work on a skill. We had 4 days of retrievals the first camp I went to. And I think that I've realized that you know, the kids want to know, and if you take the time. It's not about you. It's not about, you know, always a W, but seeing guys still loving the game is where it's at. I saw another hand out there. Maybe not. Too long-winded. Surprise, surprise. Well, thank you for your time, and best of luck to everybody. Thank you.
When I worked for Mark, a couple times I was equipment manager too. We had a bad loss. I'd look at him and I go, "You want me to move the equipment over to the JV room, don't you?" He goes, "Yes, please." Hey, it worked. Next speaker, going to have Neil Glasberg. Neil Glasberg's a McGill grad. He spent 7 years as chairman of the board for the Special Olympics, and now is the leading up the PBI sports. And what I got him in here today is he's going to get a chance and opportunity to talk to us a little bit about branding, personal branding via the social media net for coaches and programs. So with that, Neil Glasberg.
Do any of you guys that are standing in the back want to grab seats? Because I've got a 37-page PowerPoint, so no? Okay. The taskmaster here, everyone's leaving. I haven't said a word yet. The taskmaster here has given me 10 minutes to speak and a few minutes to take some questions. There's a little bit of, I'm a little nervous up here today, and I do a lot of speaking, so I really shouldn't be, and that's because these smart people all brought their laptops up here with them. I instead left mine in the back, and what tends to happen is when you're connected to the internet is stuff goes flying across your screen. So I apologize in advance if any Ashley Madison, or Pornhub, if anything comes across my screen, it's only because I'm not in control of it. Good morning. I am going to try and tie some of the stuff you've heard over the past couple of days together. My normal presentation on personal branding is about an hour in length, and I've got it down to 10 minutes. So I'm going to go pretty quick. You're not going to know everything. You're not going to be experts walking out of here this morning, but hopefully you'll have a little bit of a tweak or a little bit of an idea in your head of how important it is to brand yourself in your profession. Okay? You're all part of a homogeneous population. You're all really good coaches. You're all really good at what you do. And I think the presentations that I saw this morning were fantastic. And I've seen a lot of presentations. So great job for the folks that have been up here. But it's really important. It's not smoke and mirrors. It's not BS. It's really important to your careers. So just so I can become familiar with my audience, is anyone here, whoever's an assistant coach, can you just put up your hands just so I can get an idea? And head coaches? D1 head coaches? Okay, just D1 head coaches, give me your business cards at the end of the presentation. Just kidding. This is not a pitch, okay? This is something that you can a self-development program, but I'm not going through the program this morning. And one thing I need to do, because I'll forget because I'm getting old, is the guy who just spoke, I don't know if you caught this or not, 3 Stanley Cups, okay, with the LA Kings. 3. There are 1,600 people who have their name on the Stanley Cup once in 100 years of the Stanley Cup. So publicly, Mark, well done, and recognition. I mean, 3 times he's got 3 Stanley Cup rings, so let's give Mark a round of applause. Sorry, it's 2. It's 2. My mistake, it's 2. He was only part of it for 2, loser. Okay, so I played football. I'm sorry. I also played hockey. I grew up in Montreal, so we were born with hockey sticks in our hands. I worked in the large corporate sector for a long time, 27 years to be exact. Got frustrated as hell, 21 job progressions throughout my career. Something was working in my brain to say, I don't think I'm a large corporate guy. I think I got to get out of this. I ran Special Olympics as the chair for 6 years. I started my business in 2011. Right now, I work with about 50 NHL and AHL coaches, 6 NHL heads, 6 AHL heads, and I work with the media. So I represent a bunch of media, the hockey media guys, the ones you know and the names you hear from all the time. I was, I think, smart enough to say I can't be one sport, so I went across 3 sports. So you can imagine how much stuff I need to read every day. But I work with NFL and NBA coaches as well. And because what I do is the same. The negotiation is the same regardless of whether I'm negotiating with a hockey GM or an NFL GM or an NBA GM, okay? Because it's all around performance. That's the message you're going to hear this morning. Vander Holyfield, for those of you that heard about him, is one of my clients. I'm going to show you a video in a few minutes of how personal branding works. Mark Garagos of O.J. Simpson fame and CNN legal analyst is a partner of mine on the entertainment side because I do this with prominent celebrities as well. The rest of the stuff's not important, except for the last bullet. There is a huge potential for a lot of you guys. You should know that every conversation I have with a hockey coach, a football coach, or a basketball coach starts with, I'm the worst self-promoter. Okay? That's the opening line. I hear it 100% of the time. What I'm going to teach you today is to try and get around that so you're not a shitty self-promoter and you feel good about what you do and you feel confident about who you are. Okay? We're going to move quickly. There's some quotes that I think are really important that kind of summarize personal branding. Jeff Bezos, for those of you who have heard of him, he runs this company called Amazon. His definition of personal branding is your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Okay? Sounds pretty simple, but think about it. Okay? When people are talking to you, it's a whole different conversation. As soon as they walk away and the head starts or the conversations start elsewhere, that is your personal brand. That is what you have managed to communicate through to them. I'm going to go through this. This is just this is the most technical slide of the group this morning. But a personal brand is a set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that when you take together account for someone's decision to choose you or not. You folks are constantly looking to progress, looking to move on, looking to better your careers, looking to make career changes, all that kind of stuff. It's all about personal branding, okay? There's a myth out there which is not true, this is true, is that your personal brand, the foundation of your brand, starts with successful job performance and a proven track record. So if your team never wins, I don't care what your name is, I don't care how long you've been in the game, your personal brand is not going to be as effective for you to move on. Okay? It's as simple as that. And people miss this. They say, how come so-and-so got a job? Like, he's not good, he's not smart. But when you look at his performance, the common denominator is that the performance is always there. And the track record is always there. Okay? The credibility is there. So it's not always, because I hear this, how come so-and-so got the job? And it's not always the smartest guy that's going to get it. It's going to be the person that's got the track record. Personal brand is the image people have of you and what you stand for. Key thing here, and I tell my kids this all the time, they're ready to boot me out of the house. You have to differentiate yourself. This is not an easy task because you all do the same thing professionally. So how is Mark Morris different than a Mike Haviland, different than a Casey Jones? Okay? They're all different. You heard Mo talk about his career. He has a brand. Okay? Mark Morris has a brand. Mark Morris is the king in networking. Mark Morris has a great personal branding agent. Sorry. How you think and act when you're by yourself is the foundation of your personal brand. Okay? Think about that for a second. You could take pictures of this slide. I don't really care. But the point is that when you're by yourself, okay, or when you're not in the room is exactly what people are talking and thinking of you, okay? Be different. And the way I try and summarize this, and I always get a kick out of it in all these presentations, is think of what you want your eulogy to sound like. That's the best way to start building your personal brand. What do you want people to say at your funeral? Okay? Sounds silly, but if you work it backwards, it's a great jumpstart to figuring out your personal brand. And again, social media is not your personal brand. It's a communication tool. You guys ever heard of this thing called Facebook and LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff? I can't tell you how many people I work with. I go to their LinkedIn page, and their job from 12 years ago is what's sitting at the top of the list. How do you want anyone to hire you if you've forgotten 12 years of history? So there's a call to action here. There's work that needs to be done. It's simple work. Update your LinkedIn profiles. Let people know what your brand is all about. I'm nervous as hell that I'm going to get the hook here, so I'm racing. Another quote, very important, that I think is really meaningful. So we all need to understand the importance of branding. We're CEOs of our own companies. Your company is called Me Inc., okay? To be in business, the most important job is to be the head marketer for the brand called you. Got it? Pretty simple. It's a great book, by the way. Hopefully the technology will work. I mentioned Evander Holyfield earlier. Everyone knows who Evander Holyfield is? I had the pleasure of being referred to him 2 years ago to help him with his personal brand. The one thing I will say before I show you this video is that when you've been hit in the head hundreds of thousands of times, you don't always think straight, okay? Is anyone from Georgia? Anyone from the state of Georgia here? No? Has anybody seen what I'm about to show you? So I saw one hand. That's good. Just so you know, YouTube, as of Monday, had over 15 million views of this video. It's a 30-second video. Premise behind this, I got a call from the Attorney General from the state of Georgia about a year and a half ago, and he said, Mr. Glasser, he said, do you work with Mr. Holyfield? You know, he introduced himself, so right away I started panicking. Attorney General, why is he calling me? Like, I live in Canada. Anyway, so he said to me, you represent Mr. Holyfield? I said, yes, I do. And I'm thinking, oh man, 11 kids, 6 different mothers, God knows what I'm about to hear. And I said, what's up? And he said, well, we have a problem in Georgia. It's called road rage. Okay. None of us are ever guilty of that. I know that. I said, yeah. He says, we want to do we need to run a public service announcement around road rage because it's out of control. People are getting killed and whatnot. Okay. And he said, and you work with Holyfield? I said, yeah. He says, do you think we can have him? I said, done. And you don't have to pay him. He said, what? And I said, well, because I think that there's no better personal brand to represent an issue, a social issue like road rage, than Evander Holyfield. So we got talking, the creative juices came to play, and this is what we put together to address this road rage issue in Georgia.
You cut me off, you son of a bitch! Get the hell out that car! Get the hell out right now! I'm gonna tear you a new Come on, get out! I'm gonna beat Hey, I didn't know it was you.
Okay, I don't know, crazy lady with road rage. I don't know what that one is. Maybe we should watch that for a little entertainment value. Maybe I'm in it and I don't even know. So you get the gist. I mean, there's a guy, he didn't have to say a word, thank goodness. There was no script, there were no words to memorize. All he had to do was stand up. But, sorry, I'm being a little bit ahead of myself here. But anyway, that's what personal branding is. Granted, it doesn't relate to a hockey coach or a coach in general, but it's an example of what can be done when you take it to the next level. Am I not switching? Oh, there we are. One more quote. Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Okay, again, pretty simple. Differentiate, differentiate, differentiate. Know what you stand for, know who you are, and understand what's important to you, because all the eyes are on you when it comes to that. Here's the final slide with respect to some quickies or some takeaways. Google equals you. Whether you're applying for a job, whether you're talking to a parent of a kid that you're recruiting, whether you're going out on a date, whether you're doing anything, as soon as you have a name, what's the first thing everybody does is they Google the name, okay? What comes up? Anything that's out there, because there are no rules, okay? I won't get into, I'll give you an example real quick, but I got into it with a very prominent guy named Puck Daddy, who some of you know and don't know, who's got 175,000 followers on Twitter because he went after one of my coaches. Okay? He went after one of my coaches on a story that had zero truth to it. And from my standpoint, my job as the guy to protect the personal brand, because the team won't do it, caused me to get into it with GoDaddy and basically make sure he understood which end was up. And the problem is that there are no rules. Anyone can write anything they want. Everyone has sources. So unless you have somebody protecting your personal brand and watching out for you, it's very, very difficult to monitor. When, granted, I work at the pro level, but at the pro level, there's a lot of that stuff that goes on, and that's the value that we add to our clients. Anyone have any clue what the W gas factor is? No? Okay. It's the who gives a shit factor. And the reason that's up there is, for those of you that have kids that are big in social media, I mean, most kids are, people tweet stuff and people put stuff on Facebook that couldn't be any more ridiculous and any more far removed from who they are. If you're going to be a personal brand as a hockey coach in the NCAA or at the pro level, separate your coaching profile from your personal profile, because nobody really cares that you went to eat at a particular restaurant. Nobody really cares that GPS is following you wherever you go and you stopped at McDonald's one day. Unfortunately, though, that is the making of part of your personal brand. So it's fun, and I get that, and I'm not just a drama king or somebody that's so completely out of tune with social media. But professionally, you guys are in high-profile jobs. Certainly, you're big men and big women on campus. Stick to separating your personal brand on the professional side from the personal side. It's very easy to do, but a lot of people don't do it. And unfortunately, they say, how come I didn't get the job? And then I look at their social media and I go, I wouldn't have hired you either. Like, there's nothing there that's telling me anything about you. Try and start, I talked about the eulogy before. Try and start with a 30-second elevator speech. If I asked any one of you quickly, I said, tell me in 30 seconds what you're about, go. All I'm going to hear is for 30 seconds. This takes work, but it's important and it's a great investment in your career, okay? Great personal branding is about managing your name, differentiating yourself, living in a glasses half full world, acting like a winner, and being you and nobody else, okay? A lot of people say, I'd like to be like so-and-so one day. That's great from an objective standpoint, but that is not reality from today. Today, you are who you are. Leverage the hell out of who you are today, and good things will happen. Use social media wisely. I just gave you an example. Don't be a dinosaur. There's some people out here not on social media. I get that. But if you're looking to be in that carousel of progression and looking to be talked about and looking to get attention, instead of being envious of others, be on social media. It's really simple. If you have kids, they've forgotten more than you'll ever know. You can run, but you can't hide. Back to that first bullet about Google being you. And think positive energy 24/7. Okay, I do two pitches. One is called You're So Full of It, which is the branding one. And I do one called Positive Energy is Positively Contagious. Okay, but those are really, really important points. And again, the reason I did this morning is that I wanted to just give you a little bit of a jump start on how you can make yourselves better. So I think I'm still good on time. Yes, and we can open up the floor to any questions. In the back. You're absolutely right. I mean, and again, I don't get paid to talk about any of them. Twitter is a really good feed. If you're following verified people with that blue check mark, there are people with blue check marks that have credibility and there are some that don't. So you have to sort of pick and choose who you're going to follow. But it's a good way to communicate. You can attach pictures and all that kind of stuff. Facebook is still the be all and end all. I don't actually even go on Facebook. My tweets show up on my Facebook page, but I don't post anything to Facebook on purpose unless I'm wishing somebody a happy birthday, and that's okay. Like no one's gonna strike me down for that. Instagram's a good one also. Snapchat is a waste of time for what you guys do. And they're all sort of co-owned now anyway, so. Yep.
Born with a hockey stick in your hand. So your mom, she's okay?
So my what, sorry?
Your mother, she's okay?
Yeah, she's passed, but it wasn't as a result of a hockey stick accident.
Lots of talk about agents these days in the coaching profession. Coaches need them. What are your thoughts on that right now?
Well, that's an easy question to answer. I predominantly work with coaches at the pro level. Okay, I do work with some coaches at the college level. Certainly D1 on college basketball, football, and hockey. It's easy to get swooped up and swept into a presentation by an agent saying, "Oh, you should absolutely have an agent because we're the be-all and end-all, and we're the ones that are going to get you to where you want to go." Not true. My answer to your question, Casey, is I think that if you listen to what I just talked about with respect to personal branding, I actually yesterday got a text message from a very prominent name in the NHL just talking about coaches in general, because this is a very busy time now with guys getting fired and that kind of thing. And the message was, this is just somebody else's opinion, the NHL is a meat grinder. Those that are smart will stay in college hockey forever because you, A, get to build your program, you, B, get to choose your own players, and C, you get a pension. Some pretty meaningful comments in that. I think that everybody's situation, it's hard to just say, yes, everyone needs one. I would say if you're a D1 coach, and I think Dave Hackstall was probably the last guy to go from NCAA to pro at the head coach level. There are only 31 jobs in the NHL as head coaches. So there are 150 guys that are part of the NHL Coaches Association, and that's it. I think that you sort of have to take a look at the mirror and think that if you still have life in you and you still want to get to the pro level, guys like Mark Morris are good to talk to. Javi, guys that have been at the pro level can certainly share the pros and cons. It's a great place to be. The NHL stands for the Never Hungry League because you eat really well. But I think that it's really circumstantial as opposed to, yes, you need one or no, you don't. And there are some things to stay away. You give me like another 30 seconds?
He's your guy right now. He's next guy up.
Oh, you're up? Okay. That's it? Come on. A minute and a half. Okay. Certain things to stay away from, okay? When you hear comments like, I'm going to help you find your next job, I'm really connected, there's no fee to deal with me, so what have you got to lose? Coaches' contracts are really complicated. Those are 4 warning signs. And if I heard that, if I were in any of your shoes and I heard any of those comments out of an agent's mouth, I'd run as fast as possible, okay? For any NHL head coaching job, there are generally 5 to 10 candidates in that pool. That's it, okay? It starts there and it breaks down really quickly. So be smart. Talk to people that are in the business that are connected, that know how to work these things. But I wouldn't race out of the room and pick up the phone and Google hockey agents and make phone calls, because it's a really competitive world. Not to say that everyone can have the right opportunity, but you've got to go through the steps first on performance, track record, and branding to be part of that discussion. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for your time. Good luck. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Those presentations will be up on the ACHA website, so the video and all that will be there. I think it will be this year. Third year, I got to figure it out now.
Okay, thanks to that panel. We're going to keep moving. Ben Sire, come on up, and we're going to talk about the World Junior Championships. He's going to bring some guests up. Come on up, Ben.
Chappie, he's coming right up here. So, what? How we doing? Good. Do you want to introduce him? Yeah. Absolutely. Coach, or do you want to just take over?
You can introduce me.
I'll introduce you. And then once you guys are done, you know, open up the question and answers. Slow. Otherwise, you guys just run. We're missing one guy, aren't we? Grant Brown? All right. Hey guys, if you guys want to grab a seat, we're going to get things going here pretty quickly. We're pretty fortunate. This next group that we have here, going to turn it over to Bobby Motzko, the head coach of our World Junior team, and he's going to introduce his staff, the gold medalists from this year World Junior team. So with that, we'll turn it over to Bobby here.
Good morning, everybody. Well, a few months ago, Steve Miller called and said that they want us to do a panel, and I said no, and I'll tell you why here in a second. It's humbling. I'd rather be doing a subject on transition, power play, and it was a great experience with World Junior, but then to get up and like talk about yourself or talk about the job we did. We talked yesterday how we want to have a message that the coaches in the room can pick up on. And the big thing I'm going to do first is I want to introduce the staff, because after it was down here a year ago that they announced me as the head coach, and from that point on, and even through the summer recruiting down here, I got a lot of the number one question is, Coach, how'd you get that job? And then my friends all said, Coach, how the hell did you get that job? And I think it's important because USA Hockey is a big part of all of us. And when I go through the staff, and I think you'll get the picture that we're trying to paint here, is many summers of volunteering, working with the festivals that I had spent back, especially in my youth, or speaking at a USA event. Been very fortunate to be in a league with Colorado College, and every trip in for the last 16 years, you make a trip over there to say hello to our friends with USA Hockey. So I had a relationship there, and then in 2014, Don Lucci was named the head coach of the team that year, and he had Greg Brown and myself, and Greg and I had never met before, and we were on that staff, and our team played terrific, and we got knocked out of the quarterfinal game, but we left there very pleased with how that team came together, and then the staff that you put together, and it's not that they have a running tally of who has worked for USA Hockey, but they do know. And obviously, Greg Brown from Boston College played on an Olympic team, played on the World Junior team. We're part of the staff, and he gets rubber stamped right in to work there. Grant Patolny was on the gold medal staff in 13, and was in charge of the power play. And I coached Grant. I was on the coaching staff at the University of Minnesota. Grant scored the overtime goal in 2002 for the championship game as a two-time captain. And that year in 2013, the power play I think 11 power play goals and was outstanding. And you want to put people around you who have experience and had experience at the World Junior level. And then I had an experience to being able to coach Grant, and then when he got in the coaching profession, obviously following his career. Steve Miller and I started coaching together at Miami University many, many years ago. And Steve has won, part of his staff that won 2 national championships at Denver, national championship at Providence, and then now a gold medal. So Killer's official title is head coach to the head coach. And we're still trying to figure out, because I hired Killer to be our video coordinator because he's the hockey ops guy at Air Force now. Well, a month into it, he called me up and said, Coach, I don't know how to run the video stuff. And I had to call JJ back and say, Jim Johansson, and I go, we got a problem. We'd already announced him on the staff. So then we had and that's when we had Matt Chapman from St. Cloud State. And probably a great move for anyone in the future that gets it is your hockey ops person that's right beside you day in, day out with a lot of the projects that we got, that we tackled, that he was right there working with us. And then he and Steve together, and Chappie taught Steve then a lot about video, where they did all the prep work leading up to if we were playing Russia or Swiss. And it's a short tournament that flies by quickly, and to have a staff that's one step ahead all through the whole process. And then Chris Mayotte. Chris, I didn't have a great relationship with you before, but they vetted him, JJ, through obviously Nate Lehman, goalie coach, played in the USHL, college goaltender, and also volunteers much of his time with USA Hockey. So the reason I kind of going a little bit on this staff up here is they have great relationships with USA Hockey. Can't encourage everybody enough to speak at their events with the ADM programs, the festivals, and I'm sure many of you are doing it, but then that's kind of how everything tied together. And I had many other friends that could have been on the staff who are equally as talented, but this was a group of guys that I was very proud to work with and build this team. When we went into the summer camp was strictly going to be evaluation. And we didn't know who the team would be. We didn't want to spend a lot of time on coaching topics because it's very quick. Finland comes in, Sweden comes in, Canada comes in, 11 days in the summer, and we were going to use that evaluation. We break it into the white and blue team. We have 2 teams, 40 players. Canada this summer is going to copy the model. They're going to bring 2 teams down. And then we break it down to 1 team, or about 26 players. And we had one message when we got, and messaging, it probably ended up being the critical part of this team. We thought going in, of course, coaches, it's going to be coaching and drawing up the great power play or a face-off play. I think when it was all said and done, the lesson that we learned was the messaging. And the 3 things that we were going to really push was obviously the way we wanted to play. We wanted to play fast, up-tempo, get after it hockey, a North American brand of hockey. We were told we're going to have, in this tournament, adversity hits you. And it hits you in many different ways. For us in 2014, adversity hit us. We were playing Russia. We were actually dominating the game in the quarterfinal. We played on there was 2 rinks that you play the tournament. We're on the back rink. The glass was shorter. Our kid launched a puck from the penalty killing, and we still think it touched the glass. It went over 5-on-3. Russia scored 2 5-on-3 goals. Our tournament was over like that. And they also felt that with the media that nobody tweet out the wrong thing, nobody say the wrong thing up in Canada, that we would get pounded. Coming from U.S., and really to be on top of that. So we wanted to kind of have a message at camp on being able to handle adversity. And the other one is ego. Of course, you'd all get into the same thing. A group of all-stars come together, check our ego at the door, a message of unity. And what we had done, we at the time too, and I'll back up just a second here, like a lot of you, I'm sure, you're taping, your hockey people are taping NHL games in the playoffs right now. We've been doing this at St. Cloud for years. And we look for messages through teams. And back up a year ago to June, the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's a team that had gone through adversity. It was a team that was playing its best in the playoffs, and they went on to win the Stanley Cup. And we were preparing things for St. Cloud using Pittsburgh as a theme for us, and we've done this for years. And then I tied it into the World Junior. So we put together a film that we showed at the camp. And I can't tell you that they got a huge deal out of it, but I think for us in here, there were many more things we did with film that we'll get into, and we're going to show part of it. We're not going to show the whole thing because it gets a tad long. But I want you to pay attention to a few things with this film. You're going to see adversity. You're going to see the body language when they were going through some struggles. Then you're going to see when they start turning it around, their body language is completely different, how they're blocking shots, playing fast, getting up and down the rink, and we'll let them do a Stanley Cup. And I think there were messages in this film that we put together that coincided with the three messages that we were trying to put into the camp. So let's, Chappie, let's roll it. We need volume. Anything we can do? We thought Killer could fix this. And it won't work without sound. And I will preface as they're fixing this is we have a short, in how this was set up, a short presentation to kind of lead you through what we did, and we really want a question and answer. We feel much more comfortable if there were questions when we get to that point to lead this along versus us just talk about the job we did. And you keep looking at me, Chappie.
You're a difficult. Suggestions with you, right? You're a difficult guy to coach. Is there anything to that?
I don't think so. You know, that's a weird question for you to ask, so I don't think like that. You know, your coach is the best player on the team, and if the coach is not that. You think it's my fault? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying?
You're difficult to coach.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm asking a question. Are you difficult to coach?
I don't think so. Okay. I play. Hey?
Thanks, Bill.
This guy's such an idiot here. What's that? He's always been like this here. You know, maybe it's just not working out here, I guess. Who knows, you know. Can't get anything going. Maybe it's time for a change or something.
Performance. Baby steps, you guys discussed it. Well, +2s now. He's only a -20 for the year.
The Toronto Maple Leafs have traded forward Phil Kessel to the Pittsburgh Penguins in a multiplayer deal.
Considering that at some point during the season, people were saying, get rid of Phil Kessel no matter what.
2008, Phil Kessel is not with the Maple Leafs as they open training camp, thanks to the offseason trade that sent the 27-year-old to the Penguins. Excitement and expectations are building around Kessel. Will he flourish in a new system? Is he really uncoachable? Well, for now, the newbie is just trying to put the past behind him.
First day, you know, for training camps, a little different, but, you know, I'm really excited to be here, and, you know, it's going to be a lot of fun this year.
Matt, the Pittsburgh Penguins, on an inauspicious start to the season, they're 12-8. Sidney Crosby's 11 points in 20 games. Mario and Sid, by all accounts, are not seeing eye to eye.
I know it's tough right now, but it's, I know we're mad at each other.
What's going on with Genny Malkin and Sidney Crosby? There's something going on there that those two aren't in cahoots. They have a problem. And it's got nothing to do with Mike Johnston. It's got nothing to do with Phil Kessel.
The Penguins haven't made a conference final 4 out of 5 years. They're the third oldest team in hockey. Is it Mike Johnston? Is it Jim Rutherford? Is it Phil Kessel? Maybe now you can criticize Sidney Crosby a little bit. Maybe you can't do the things he used to do. Maybe you can't carry a team. The Pittsburgh Penguins have been a disgrace from a strategy standpoint. They don't know what kind of team they want to build. They change philosophies every offseason. We want to be grinders. We want to be an offensive team. We bring in Jim Rutherford. Let's do this. Let's do that. They don't know whether to bleep or go sailing.
Pittsburgh Penguins have made a coaching change. I want to thank Mike Johnson for his contribution to this team. We will present the new coach to you tomorrow. It's going to be Mike Sullivan.
He is quite an amazing player. Had a real slow start.
Crosby, repeated once, hooked up twice.
33. Crosby, big one, Daly there. He scores! Got it back, he scores!
That's 6 goals. Score. Pittsburgh has now won 12 of their last 13 games.
Crosby, Bill on a Holtby. Crosby scores! Game-winning goal.
I think we just try to gain consistency and they'll get better at each game. I think for the last couple months, I think like the team, I think we've all been better.
I just think we're playing the game the right way. I think we're taking what the game gives us. I like the way we're playing right now.
Everybody's got to buy in here, okay? Everybody's got to buy in. Penguins hockey, fast and fearless, chipping bodies, attention to detail, okay? Let's get this thing done here. Enough is enough.
Let's go, you freaking animals. Come on, Bears, yeah?
It's gonna be a grind, boys. It's gonna be worth it, though. Just skating, helping each other, talking out there. Yeah. Let's fight for every inch out here, boys.
All right. So we're here we are again, knocking on the door, right? Knocking on the door. We got to bang it in. And the way to do it is we got to play fast and fearless, right? Penguins hockey. Let's just play the game the right way, shift by shift, regardless of what happens, momentum swings, we just play. We just play. There's a lot of hockey out there, okay?
The film goes on for another 10 minutes in how Pittsburgh played, and their transition game was incredible. It was, if it went D to D, it was a millisecond, and that puck was up the wall, and how they slanted the pucks. They were Bonino himself, I think, and it goes in maybe 18, 20 clips we have of him blocking shots in the playoffs, and it painted the picture. And another thing with Kessel. Kessel arguably could have been the MVP of the playoffs last year with close to 20 goals in that. And so that's a message, and fast and furious. There were words that we picked up on that we continued to hammer home through there. And I'd be remiss if I did another. JJ had called me leading into it that he had a sports psychologist type person that he wanted to be with us, and Lieutenant Colonel Sean Brazel. Brazel is all we know him as is Braz, and he was a Marine, 20 years, highly decorated, trained specialty in intelligence, in interrogation. He was brought in to meet all of our players individually. He could break them down within seconds in training and get to the bottom of the core of this. Is this guy a competitor? Will he run through a wall for you? Does he have some issues? And sometimes we all get leery when we bring these people into the room. This guy was phenomenal for us, and it was to a person on our staff and the players, how he helped us through the process and selection, and then more important, what we think one of the most important, and I'll go back, things was this team had its barriers down, and they played for each other. And I know talking with Don Granato, this 97 group that they played through had tremendous leadership. And it was a true collection of a staff of really getting this team on the same page, fighting through adversity. We use certain things like, somebody's going to get a call from an agent, and that agent's going to tell him, well, you're getting screwed, you're playing with the wrong player. And we had to have messages that don't listen to anything from the outside, stay to the team, and these kids have to have the character. And, of course, our top players, and Keller, and obviously we know McAvoy, what he did after he got to the NHL was outstanding. Our goaltending was outstanding. But just a couple, players to highlight where we kept faith in every guy. Troy Terry, tremendous hockey player, and now he's a legend now. You know how many points Troy Terry had in the tournament? He had 1 goal in the tournament. But in the big moment when he was needed, he stepped up with 4 shootout goals. And the same thing, that's why I use a couple examples of kids that stayed true to our team. And Bellows wasn't having the greatest year at BU last year, but he had experience, 50 goals with the development program. He played very strong at the World 18s, and he was a guy that we kept on the team because of his past. And there were some games he didn't get a lot of ice time, and he stayed positive. He never, ever showed bad body language and stayed positive on the team. And then he gets 2 goals in the championship game. And we felt that when we did an autopsy of it afterwards, it was the camaraderie of the group. And remember, going in, we thought it was going to be coaching, that it was going to be the power play, the penalty kill, and penalty kill is huge. And we could get into some of those questions. But it was the team. It's a players' tournament. It's not a coaches' tournament. Our messages were short, concise. We stayed loyal and true to the guys that were on the team. I think, I used to love the Doug Woog theory, is at any given moment a team's elevator is either going up or down, never sitting still. And it's a coach's job to continually push that elevator going up. And the same can be said with a player. And, when we look back, there were only a couple guys that were maybe just slipping a tad. Everyone else, their elevator kept moving straight ahead. And, of course, we had great goaltending in the tournament as this thing played out. What we want to do now is lead to questions that can help this thing through. And I think that would really play a lot better than listening to me. But it gives you a gist of what we went through and how we built this thing.
So if anybody has any questions here, we can take questions. Go ahead.
Given that it was such a short time for you guys to have a team, just right off the hop, what was your first week or the first stages of practice? How much time did you put into systems? I know you mentioned it's a player's tournament. I'm sure that might have been a tough job.
The advantage we had this year was when the college season ended on that Friday, Saturday, and I'll forget their dates, December 12, 13. We had a full week off, and then we met on Thursday, and then we had a 4 5-day camp in Buffalo. Conversely, in 2014, our college season ended on the Saturday in mid-December. We met on Sunday with no rest, and we had an exhibition game on Tuesday, flew to Sweden, and we had very little prep time. And the big advantage that we got this year, and this next year, the calendar falls a little off again. Our guys were rested with the college season as normally used to. Then we had a 4-day, 5-day camp before we played an exhibition game. And we used that as a true camp where we tried to get our systems in. We weren't going to shock the world with anything. We wanted to play fast, as we said. We worked on our transition game. The truth is we ended up being a little bit more of a heavy team with our size, and we were intimidating down low. I mean, Greenway, if anyone was watching, if I don't know if the camera had it, but when we played Canada for the championship game, and we started Greenway every Canada game, he skated within 10 feet of the Canada bench and just stared him down. And the message was sent. And he was in their shorts. I'll still go back to those were the messages. Our coaching and the systems happened in 4 or 5 days, and then that's it. You're off and flying.
I got a question for one of the assistants. If Grant or Brownie want to take this, obviously you're going north of the border, the World Juniors in Canada. We've all traveled up there, especially at Christmas time. I mean, that's as bigger than the NHL playoffs for the country unto itself. Was there any particular message that was sent from your staff to your players how to handle the crowds and the venues that you were going to be playing in that would certainly be Canadian-driven crowds?
Well, I think it's something you got to be very mindful of, and I think we were with the message with our guys, and we all know when we go into buildings where you're going to a tough building to play, at times the puck gets over the red line, and all of a sudden the crowd cheers, and there's nothing going on in the game, but the crowd starts cheering, and all of a sudden your guys can feed off that one way or the other. I thought, and I think every team kind of takes the personality of the head coach, and I thought that one of the greatest things Bob did was he was so even keel throughout the whole tournament. And even in like the championship game, we're down 2-rip, and then we're down 4-2. And in the third period, when they went up 4-2, I think with the exception of the 20 guys on our bench and the 5 guys standing behind it or whatever, everybody thought the game was over. But the next shift, Bellows scores because it was just an even keel deal. And I thought, from the moment that we were in Plymouth in the summer, and Bob touched on it, as much as it's a bunch of stars, we had a team. And with Greenway doing his stuff, and we felt like we were bigger, badder, tougher, meaner, and we kind of just kept feeding them that. And I think it, obviously in the end, it paid off.
I have no idea. And I've never coached in an outdoor game. And I am going to reach out to a lot of the coaches that have been in it. But, usually it's been a regular season game and, an 80-game deal or an exhibition game. This one's kind of crazy because this is a game that's going to count for something. And I'm not even close, Bob, to ready to answer that. I wouldn't even know how to begin with that one right now. My first thought, we're going to have fun with it. What the heck? And enjoy the heck out of it and just get after it. I think with a lot because of the national program and I'll back up real quick. The U.S. has won 4 gold medals. Wisconsin Badger's been the captain on every team. So you got to go with karma on that. So Cunnin was it. I mean, I wasn't going to break tradition, but he was a true leader. McAvoy was right in there, and Whitey. I mean, these guys are leaders on their team. They were mature. And you guys, we all know, guys and gals, when there's leaders on your team, they just step forward. This one was kind of a no-brainer. And Jim Johansson and his staff are integral parts of that process with Ben Smith. He big part of this body for many, many years, and Ryan Martin from the Detroit Red Wings, and he's got a few other guys that help, but they have a pretty good handle on those guys coming out of the National Development Program, and we were very fortunate to have great leadership on this group.
This question here is for Killer and Mayo. You guys can share this one together, but you guys were obviously upstairs during the games, and it sounds like there was a lot of conversing and feedback going on with the entire staff. What were some of the things that you guys would bring down? Obviously, there's adversity that you referenced at different times throughout the tournament, but did you keep it to 2 or 3 points, or how were messages conveyed from upstairs to the rest of the coaches in between periods?
Well, I think the big thing for us was to bring 1 or 2 things down to Bob, Grant, and Brownie, and keep it as simple as possible, and then let them go forward with that if they thought it was worth sharing with the team. We'd communicate a lot with Matt about clips that we were going to pull up if we were going to show clips to the guys and stuff like that. We kind of let Brownie and Grant alone there from the video, from the communication standpoint, but again, come down in between periods and just bring a couple bullet points every period for the coaching staff. Yeah.
Just an insightful guy, Mayo. I love it. I love it. All right, we won't let Mayo off the hook here right now. This comes from your boy Dave Starman. He wanted to make sure that I asked you this. So obviously you guys shared the goaltending duties, and there were some tough decisions, and Bob can weigh in on this, but I'm going to start with you, Mayo, if you want to talk about that, some of your decisions as a staff as to who played in certain games. Why did they play?
I think, well, obviously Coach Motzko had the final say in everything, and I think, part of how our team performed and the success that we had in different players in different roles, he won't talk about it, but his feel for everything was pretty impressive to watch, and just feel for guys who are going to excel in certain situations. Obviously, you saw that with Troy in the shootout and things like that. Parsons was kind of our guy, we felt, but we rotated goalies through training camp. We rotated goalies, our summer camp. We gave Ottinger, Wall, and Parsons each a Sweden, Finland, Canada game. And then going into the exhibition games, we did the same thing there. And so